Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! Amidst the hum of fluorescent lights, the air crackled with anticipation within the quiet office of Nexus Technologies. The day's task was no ordinary affair. A unique promotional video project had the entire company whispering in eager anticipation. Cameras clicked into place, each burst of flash momentarily blinding eager eyes. Lighting equipment was meticulously arranged to capture the essence of different eras. At the center of it all, a vintage desk, seemingly transported from the 1950s, stood as the focal point of the director's animated instructions. The marketing team's creative brainchild, a video journey through the company's evolution, was on the verge of production. The contrast is the whole point. Still, no hands went up. Kai, a 32-year-old software developer who had been with the company for 5 years, stood at the back of the group. He had come to the meeting out of obligation rather than interest, wearing his usual uniform of nondescript jeans and a navy button-down shirt, his blonde hair neatly trimmed in a conservative cut. He'd always been the quiet one, reliable but unremarkable, the kind of employee who earned solid performance reviews but never quite stood out.
"Come on, people," urged Devin. "It's one scene, maybe 2 minutes of screen time. The costume department has everything ready."
The silence stretched uncomfortable seconds into a full minute.
"I'll do it,"
Kai found himself saying, unsure where the words had come from. His voice sounded strange to his own ears, too high, too eager. 30 pairs of eyes swiveled toward him. He felt his face growing hot.
"You?"
Devin blinked, then recovered quickly. "I mean, that's great! Thank you for volunteering, Kai. I wasn't expecting—"
"No one else is stepping up,"
Kai said with a shrug, trying to appear nonchalant.
"And it's just acting, right? For the good of the company."
A few chuckles rippled through the group. Someone patted him on the back.
"Taking one for the team, huh, Kai?"
"The costume might need some adjustments," Devin said, eyeing Kai's 5'10" frame. "Let's get you to wardrobe." The costume department had taken over a vacant conference room. Racks of vintage-style clothing lined the walls, and a portable vanity had been set up in one corner. A middle-aged woman with bright red spectacles looked up from sorting accessories when Kai and Devin entered.
"This is Melanie, our costume designer," Devin said. "Melanie, Kai has volunteered to play our secretary."
Melanie assessed Kai with a professional eye, tapping a finger against her chin. Not what I was planning for, but I can work with this." She circled Kai, taking mental measurements. "You're slim. Good shoulders. Yes, I think I have just the thing." Before Kai could respond, she was pulling items from the racks. A navy polka dot swing dress, a red cardigan, flesh-colored pantyhose, and a pair of black Mary Jane shoes with modest heels.
"I'll need a few minutes to make adjustments," Melanie said, laying the outfit on a table. "And then we'll need to do your hair and makeup." "Makeup?"
Kai echoed, suddenly feeling out of his depth. "Of course," Melanie said, matter-of-factly. "Can't have you on camera without it. Don't worry, nothing too dramatic, just enough to look period-appropriate on film." Devin clapped Kai on the shoulder. "I'll leave you in Melanie's capable hands. We start shooting in an hour." Left alone with Melanie and her arsenal of fashion, Kai felt a flutter of anxiety. What had he gotten himself into? He'd expected some good-natured ribbing from his colleagues, but as Melanie altered the dress with quick, efficient movements of her needle, the reality of what he'd volunteered for began to sink in. "Here," Melanie said, handing him the modified outfit and pointing to a portable screen in the corner.
Change behind there. The pantyhose might be tricky if you've never worn them before, so call if you need help. Behind the screen, Kai held up the dress, studying its deep navy fabric scattered with small white polka dots. The material felt soft against his fingertips, the skirt full and flouncy. He removed his button-down shirt and jeans, folding them neatly out of habit. The pantyhose were indeed a challenge, but after some awkward hopping and tugging, he managed to pull them up his legs. They felt strange, constraining, yet somehow pleasant against his skin. The dress slipped over his head with a whisper of fabric. Kai reached behind to zip it up, contorting his arms until the zipper was secured. The bodice hugged his chest, which Melanie had cleverly disguised with some strategic padding. The skirt flared out from his waist, ending just below his knees. He slipped his feet into the Mary Janes, surprised to find them comfortable despite the 2-inch heels. Taking a deep breath, Kai stepped out from behind the screen. Melanie looked up and broke into a smile. "Well now, look at you." Kai shifted uncomfortably, aware of how the fabric swished around his legs. "Is it okay?" "Come see for yourself." Melanie guided him to a full-length mirror in the corner. The reflection that greeted Kai sent a shock through his system. The person in the mirror was both familiar and utterly foreign, his own face and build, yet transformed by the clothing into someone he'd never met before. The dress accentuated his slim waist, while the padded bodice gave the illusion of a feminine chest. His legs, encased in pantyhose, looked surprisingly shapely. "What do you think?" Melanie asked. "I don't know," Kai admitted, unable to tear his eyes away from the mirror. He had expected to feel ridiculous, but instead there was a strange sense of rightness, as if something that had been slightly off-kilter his entire life had suddenly clicked into place. "Let's get your hair and makeup done," Melanie said, guiding him to the makeshift vanity. "Sit." For the next half hour, Kai sat still as Melanie worked her magic. She applied foundation, a touch of rouge, mascara, and a coral lipstick that she assured him was perfect for the period. His short blonde hair was coaxed into soft waves with a curling iron and a liberal application of styling products. "Now for the final touch," Melanie said, producing a strand of pearls and fastening them around Kai's neck. She stepped back, admiring her handiwork. "Perfect. You look absolutely authentic." Kai gazed at himself in the vanity mirror. The transformation was complete. His angular features had been softened by the makeup, his blonde hair now framing his face in a distinctly feminine style. The pearls gleamed against his skin, complementing the polka dot dress and red cardigan. "I look like a different person," he murmured. "That's the point, isn't it?" Melanie said with a wink. "Now, let's show our director what we've accomplished." Walking in heels was an adjustment, but Kai found his balance quicker than expected. The dress swished pleasantly around his legs as he made his way back to the main office area where the film crew had set up. The click of his heels against the floor announced his arrival before he was seen. The conversation in the room died as Kai entered. Every eye turned to stare. He fought the urge to turn and flee, forcing himself to stand straight, the way Melanie had instructed. "My God," Devon breathed, approaching with wide eyes. "Kai, you look incredible." From around the room came murmurs of agreement, a few appreciative whistles, and the distinct sound of someone dropping a coffee mug in surprise.
Meet our 1950s secretary, Melanie announced proudly, positioning Kai in front of the vintage desk that had been arranged with an old typewriter, rotary phone, and stacked folders.
"This is perfect,"
declared the director, a bearded man named Russell.
"Absolutely perfect. What did you say your name was again?"
Kai, he responded automatically.
No.
Russell shook his head.
For the character, we need a period-appropriate name.
Oh. Kai hesitated, his mind suddenly blank. How about Mariana? Suggested Melanie. It suits you. The name resonated somewhere deep inside him.
Mariana, he repeated. The syllables felt right on his tongue, as if he'd been waiting to say them his entire life. Mariana it is, Russell agreed. Now let's run through your scene. You'll be typing at the desk, answering the phone, taking notes. Basic secretary stuff, but with personality. Can you do that?
Kai, or rather Mariana, nodded, settling into the chair behind the desk. The typewriter keys felt solid beneath her fingers, the carriage return satisfyingly mechanical. Russell demonstrated the scene he wanted, and Mariana practiced a few times without the cameras rolling.
Action!
Russell finally called. Mariana became someone else entirely. Her movements were fluid and confident as she pantomimed typing, pausing to answer the prop phone with a bright, "Nexus Technologies, how may I direct your call?" She jotted notes in a stenographer's pad, her handwriting unconsciously becoming more feminine, more flowing. When she rose to file a folder, her walk was graceful despite the unfamiliar heels, her posture impeccable. "Cut!" Russell's voice broke the spell. That was perfect. Absolutely perfect on the first take. Are you sure you haven't done this before? Mariana shook her head, a shy smile playing on her coral-tinted lips. No, never. Well, you're a natural, Russell declared. Let's do one more for safety, and then we'll move on to the 1960s segment. The second take went as smoothly as the first. As Mariana performed, she became increasingly comfortable in her role, in her body. The clothing that had felt so foreign an hour ago now seemed to belong on her frame. The makeup that had seemed so strange now felt like a revelation. When Russell finally announced they were moving on, Mariana felt a pang of disappointment. She lingered at the vintage desk, reluctant to leave the character and the costume behind.
"You were amazing,"
said a voice beside her. She looked up to see Tina from HR, a woman she'd always admired for her confidence and style. "I wouldn't have recognized you if I hadn't known it was you under all that." "Thank you," Mariana replied, her voice naturally lifting to a higher register. "It was fun, actually." "Well, you looked incredible," Tina said. "Hey, a bunch of us are going for drinks after work to celebrate the shoot. You should come. As Mariana, it would be a riot." The invitation sent a thrill through her, an excuse to stay in character, to remain in these clothes that felt so unexpectedly right. "I'd like that," she heard herself saying. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur. Mariana stayed on set, watching the other segments being filmed, occasionally being called in for additional shots as the secretary character. People kept coming up to compliment her performance, marvel at her transformation, ask how it felt to be in character. "It feels right," she admitted to a colleague from the design department. "Like I'm playing a role I was meant to play." As the workday ended and the film crew packed up, Melanie approached Mariana at her desk. "Time to change back, I suppose," she said. though there was a question in her voice. Mariana hesitated. Actually, some people invited me out for drinks, as Mariana. Would it be okay if I kept the outfit a little longer? I promise I'll take good care of it. Melanie studied her face for a long moment, something knowing in her expression. Keep it as long as you need, she said softly. Sometimes costumes help us discover parts of ourselves we didn't know were there. The bar was crowded when Mariana arrived, but she spotted her coworkers at a large table in the corner. Taking a deep breath, she navigated through the crowd, aware of the eyes that followed her progress, not with ridicule, as she might have feared, but with appreciation. You came! Tina exclaimed, making room for her at the table. Everyone, Mariana is here! A cheer went up from the group. Someone pressed a cocktail into her hand, something pink and fruity that she would never have ordered as Kai, but that seemed perfectly fitting for Mariana.
To our star performer, toasted Devin, raising his glass. Who knew our quiet developer had such hidden talents?
Hear, hear,
the group chorused. As the evening progressed, Mariana found herself relaxing, laughing, engaging in conversations she would have avoided as Kai. She discussed fashion with Tina, accepted makeup tips from another woman in marketing, and even flirted mildly with an account executive from another floor who clearly had no idea she wasn't assigned female at birth. It was well past midnight when she finally left the bar, buzzing not from alcohol. She'd nursed just 2 cocktails all night, but from the exhilaration of being seen and accepted as Mariana. In the privacy of her apartment, Mariana stood before the bathroom mirror, studying her reflection in the harsh fluorescent light. The makeup was still flawless, the dress still perfectly fitted. She touched her face, tracing the contours that Melanie had accentuated with clever shading. Then, slowly, she began to remove the makeup, watching as each swipe of the cleansing cloth revealed more of Kai underneath. But even when the last trace of lipstick was gone, when her blonde hair had been washed clean of styling products, when the dress and pantyhose had been carefully removed, something of Mariana remained. A ghost in her posture, in the tilt of her head, in the awareness of her body that had never been there before. Sleep eluded her that night. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying the day's events. The ease she'd felt in Mariana's skin, the rightness of the name, the freedom that had come with the transformation. By morning, a decision had crystallized in her mind. The following Monday, Kai arrived at work in his usual attire, jeans, button-down shirt, sensible shoes. But inside his messenger bag was a small makeup kit he'd purchased over the weekend, along with a how-to book on feminine styling. During lunch, he disappeared into a bathroom stall and practiced applying mascara, his hand shaking slightly as he coated his lashes. Over the next few weeks, subtle changes began to appear in Kai's presentation. His blonde hair grew longer, the conservative cut giving way to something softer around his face. His clothing, while still masculine, became more fitted, more colorful. He started moisturizing, using clear lip balm, shaping his eyebrows. Colleagues noticed but said little. A raised eyebrow here, a curious glance there, but mostly acceptance. This was, after all, a progressive tech company in a liberal city. If their quiet developer was exploring his gender expression, it wasn't their place to comment. 3 months after the promotional video shoot, an email arrived in everyone's inbox. It was from Kai, but the signature at the bottom read, Mariana Reynolds. Dear colleagues, it began. As some of you may have noticed, I've been going through some personal changes recently.
What started as a role in our promotional video has evolved into a journey of self-discovery. I've realized that Mariana isn't just a character I played. She's who I am. The email went on to request that coworkers use her new name and feminine pronouns, and to express gratitude for the supportive environment at Nexus Technologies that had made this realization possible. The responses flooded in immediately. Messages of support, congratulations, offers of assistance. Tina from HR personally delivered an updated name badge to Mariana's desk, along with a bouquet of flowers. Devin amended the credits on the now completed promotional video to reflect her new name. The following day, Mariana came to work as herself for the first time. She wore a simple blue dress, not unlike the polka dot one from the shoot, but more modern, with low heels and subtle makeup. Her blonde hair, now growing out, was styled in a feminine bob. Her hands trembled as she swiped her keycard at the entrance, but she held her head high. The office fell quiet as she walked to her desk. Then someone started to applaud. Others joined in, until the entire floor was clapping. Mariana felt tears prick at her eyes, overwhelmed by the acceptance. "Welcome, Mariana," Devin said, approaching her desk with a wide smile. "You look wonderful." "Thank you," she replied, her voice still adjusting to its new, higher register. "It feels good to be here, as myself." The transition wasn't always smooth. There were occasional slip-ups with pronouns, moments of awkwardness in the restroom, client calls where she had to explain that yes, she was the same person they'd worked with before, just with a different name now. But overall, Nexus Technologies proved to be the supportive environment she'd hoped for. 6 months into her transition, Mariana was called into the CEO's office. Her heart raced as she made her way there, wondering if there was a problem with her work or her transition. Franklin Chen, the founder and CEO, greeted her with a warm handshake. "Mariana, thank you for coming. Please, have a seat." She smoothed her emerald green pencil skirt under her as she sat, noting that Franklin seemed relaxed, even pleased. Not the demeanor of someone about to deliver bad news. "I wanted to speak with you about a potential opportunity," Franklin began. "As you know, my executive assistant is retiring next month. I've been interviewing candidates, but something occurred to me while watching our promotional video for the umpteenth time." He smiled. "You were remarkable as that 1950s secretary. The efficiency, the poise, the attention to detail. Those aren't just acting skills. They're qualities I need in an EA." Mariana blinked in surprise. "Are you offering me the position?" "I'm suggesting you consider it," Franklin clarified. "It would be a significant change from software development, of course. Different skill set, different challenges, but it comes with a substantial raise. And from what I've observed of your work ethic and interpersonal skills, I think you'd excel." The offer caught her off guard. She'd never considered leaving development, had never thought of herself in an administrative role. But as Franklin outlined the responsibilities, managing his schedule, coordinating with departmental heads, serving as a liaison between executive leadership and the rest of the company, she found herself intrigued. "May I think about it?" she asked. "Of course," Franklin nodded. "Take the weekend. Let me know on Monday." Over the weekend, Mariana made lists of pros and cons, consulted with friends, and spent long hours reflecting on what she truly wanted from her career. The developer role had been comfortable, but had it ever been truly fulfilling? Or had it been just another way of hiding, of making herself small and unnoticed? The executive assistant position would put her front and center in the company. It would require confidence, assertiveness, excellent communication skills, all qualities she'd been nurturing since embracing her true identity. Monday morning, dressed in a tailored burgundy blazer over a cream blouse and matching burgundy skirt, Mariana knocked on Franklin's door. "I'd like to accept the position," she said without preamble. Franklin's face broke into a wide smile. "Excellent! HR will draw up the paperwork. You can start shadowing Doris immediately. Learn the ropes before she leaves." The transition to her new role was as significant as her gender transition had been, but in many ways more straightforward. Doris, the retiring EA, was a font of institutional knowledge and practical wisdom. She taught Mariana everything from Franklin's coffee preferences to the best way to politely shut down time-wasting meetings. "You've got good instincts," Doris observed after watching Mariana deftly reschedule a conflicting appointment. "And people respond well to you. That's half the battle in this job, getting people to do what needs doing without making them feel managed." By the time Doris retired, Mariana had made the executive assistant position her own. She brought to it the meticulous attention to detail that had served her well as a developer, combined with the poise and presence she'd discovered as Mariana. The executive floor, once intimidating, became her domain. A year into her new role, Nexus Technologies held its annual gala, a black tie affair at a downtown hotel, celebrating the company's achievements and outlining its future plans. As Franklin's EA, Mariana was instrumental in organizing the event, coordinating with vendors, managing the guest list, and ensuring every detail was perfect. The night of the gala, she arrived early to oversee the final arrangements. She wore a floor-length navy gown, a nod to that first polka dot dress, though infinitely more sophisticated, with her blonde hair, now grown long and luxurious, styled in an elegant updo. Pearl earrings and a matching necklace completed the look. As guests began to arrive, employees, clients, investors, industry peers, Mariana circulated with practiced ease, making introductions, answering questions, ensuring everyone felt welcome. She caught sight of her reflection in a mirrored column and paused, momentarily struck by how far she'd come. The woman gazing back at her was confident, poised, completely at home in her skin and in this setting. There was no trace of the hesitant, reserved developer who had volunteered for a promotional video role out of some inexplicable impulse. In that moment, Mariana felt a profound gratitude for the journey that had brought her here.
"Penny for your thoughts,"
said a voice beside her. She turned to see Russell, the director of the promotional video, now a regular contractor for the company's media needs. "Just reflecting on how much has changed since we first worked together," Mariana replied with a smile. Russell nodded, his eyes warm with understanding.
"You were a natural from the first moment. Some people just need the right role to reveal who they truly are."
"I never thanked you properly," she said. "That video, it changed my life."
"You did all the hard work,"
Russell countered. "I just pointed a camera at the truth that was already there." Their conversation was interrupted by Franklin tapping a microphone at the front of the room, signaling the start of the formal program. Mariana excused herself to take her place near the stage, ready to assist with the presentation if needed. Franklin's speech was brief but compelling, outlining Nexus Technologies' growth over the past year and its vision for the future. He acknowledged key team members, including my invaluable right hand, Mariana Reynolds, without whom none of this would run nearly as smoothly. The room erupted in applause, and Mariana felt herself blushing as heads turned in her direction. Franklin gestured for her to join him on stage, an unexpected moment in the program. Gathering her composure, she ascended the steps, the navy gown shimmering under the spotlights. "Many of you know Mariana's remarkable journey with our company," Franklin continued once she was standing beside him. "From talented developer
to the star of our now award-winning promotional video, to becoming the organizational genius who keeps our executive team functioning. What you might not know is that it was Mariana who spearheaded our new diversity and inclusion initiative this year, ensuring that Nexus Technologies remains a place where everyone can bring their authentic selves to work. More applause, louder this time. Mariana had indeed been passionate about formalizing the company's commitment to inclusion, drawing on her own experience to help craft policies that would support other employees through their own journeys of self-discovery. It's my great pleasure to announce that, in addition to her current responsibilities, Mariana will be taking on the newly created role of Chief Culture Officer, overseeing our efforts to maintain the supportive, innovative environment that has made our success possible. The announcement took Mariana completely by surprise. She and Franklin had discussed expanding her role, but she hadn't expected it to be announced so publicly, so soon. As the room filled with cheers and applause, she stepped to the microphone. "Thank you," she said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "When I volunteered for that promotional video 3 years ago, I had no idea where it would lead. I certainly never imagined standing here tonight, accepted and valued not despite but because of who I am." She paused, looking out at the sea of faces. Colleagues who had become friends, mentors who had become champions of her growth, newcomers who knew her only as Mariana, the confident executive assistant. Nexus Technologies gave me the space to discover my authentic self, and in doing so, helped me find strengths I never knew I possessed. As Chief Culture Officer, my goal is to ensure that every person who works here has that same opportunity, to bring their whole selves to work, to be supported in their growth, to find the role that allows them to shine brightest. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of congratulations, well wishes, and excited discussions about her new role. When the last guest had departed and the hotel staff were clearing away the evidence of the celebration, Mariana found a quiet moment alone on the terrace, gazing out at the city lights. The cool night air caressed her skin as she reflected on the journey that had brought her here. From that first moment of volunteering to the revelation of seeing herself in the mirror as Mariana, to the gradual, sometimes difficult, but ultimately rewarding process of becoming herself both inside and out. Every step had been necessary. Every challenge had strengthened her resolve. She heard the terrace door open behind her and turned to see Melanie, the costume designer who had first transformed her into Mariana. They had stayed in touch over the years, becoming friends beyond their professional connection. "Congratulations, Chief Culture Officer," Melanie said, joining her at the railing. "Though I'm not sure culture quite captures what you do." "Chief Transformation Officer might be more accurate." Mariana laughed softly. "I just help people find where they belong, like you did for me." "I merely provided a costume," Melanie demurred. "You're the one who recognized the truth it revealed." They stood in companionable silence for a moment, watching the distant lights of cars moving through the city streets. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't volunteered that day?" Melanie asked finally. Mariana considered the question. "Sometimes. I imagine I'd still be sitting in that developer's chair, writing code, living half a life, never knowing what was missing." "I don't think so." Melanie shook her head. "I think you would have found your way eventually. The truth has a way of making itself known, one way or another. The video just gave it a stage." "Perhaps," Mariana conceded. "But I'm grateful it happened when it did. How it did." She smoothed a hand over the navy fabric of her gown. "There was something magical about that polka dot dress. It wasn't the dress, Melanie said gently. It was you. It's always been you, Mariana. As they returned inside to oversee the final wrap-up of the event, Mariana caught sight of herself once more in the mirror. The woman who looked back at her was the same one who had emerged that day on the set, confident, authentic, radiating a quiet joy that came from living in alignment with her truth. From reluctant volunteer to executive assistant to chief culture officer, her journey had been unexpected but utterly right, and it had all begun with a polka dot dress, a red cardigan, and the courage to step into a role that turned out not to be a role at all, but the most authentic expression of who she had always been meant to be. In the reflection, standing tall in her navy gown, with her blonde hair elegantly styled, was simply Mariana, no longer playing a part, but living her truth, creating a path for others to do the same, and finding in that purpose a happiness she had never imagined possible.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!